Some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman, joined by Democracy Now! Producer Nermeen Sheikh, who'll be co-hosting with me today. Welcome, Nermeen.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. In Libya, rebel forces say Muammar Gaddafi's stronghold of Bani Walid is ready to come under the National Transitional Council's authority, despite pockets of resistance. Meanwhile, rebel troops say they've advanced about 5 miles towards Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte in heavy fighting today. Reuters reports the U.S. government has urged Niger to detain senior officials from the Gaddafi government who it believes crossed into the country in a convoy from Libya. Niger officials say the convoy carried several senior members of Gaddafi's government, but gave no indication that Gaddafi himself was among them. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch has uncovered hundreds of letters in the Libyan Foreign Ministry, proving that Gaddafi's government directly aided the extraordinary rendition program carried out by the CIA and MI6 in Britain after the 9/11 attacks. Peter Bouckaert is the Emergencies Director at Human Rights Watch.
Among the files we discovered yesterday at Moussa Koussa's office is facts from the CIA dated May 2004, in which the CIA informs the Libyan government that they are in a position to capture and render Belhaj, who is now the head of the Tripoli Military Council, to Libya. And that operation actually took place. He was captured by the CIA in Asia and put on a secret flight back to Libya, where he was interrogated and tortured by the Libyan security services.
The documents expose how the CIA rendered suspects to Libyan authorities knowing they would be tortured. One of the most prominent suspects rendered to Libya was an Islamic militant named Abdel Hakim Belhaj, who is now the military commander for the Libyan rebels. At the time of his capture in 2004, Belhaj was a member of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, a group that has ties to Al-Qaeda.
Our concern is that when these people were handed over to the Libyan security, they were tortured. And the CIA knew what would happen when they sent people like Abdel Hakim into the hands of the Libyan security services. We must remember that these are Islamic militants who were first in the hands of the CIA. So if they wanted to interrogate them themselves, they could have done so. But instead, they sent them to a security service, which even in the U.S. State Department's own public reporting is known for its torture and abuse.
Peter Bouckaert of Human Rights Watch says the letters from the CIA and MI6 were found in the offices of the former head of Libyan intelligence, Moussa Koussa.
Is first of all the frankness of these files. They send questions to the Libyan security services to ask to the suspects they have rendered, but also the very friendly tone. They thank Moussa Koussa for the crate of oranges and dates that he sent back with the intelligence agent who came to visit. And all of the lessons, these are letters, Dear Moussa letters, to a man who is infamous in Libya for his involvement in repression. Moussa Koussa was Gaddafi's enforcer, together with Sanusi, the intelligence chief.
To find out more about these letters, we're going directly to Peter Bouckaert in Tripoli on the telephone, Human Rights Watch's Emergencies Director. But first, before we go to these remarkable letters that were found, Peter Bouckaert, just if you could talk about the latest in Tripoli right now.
Well, the situation in Tripoli is still in the process of stabilizing. When Tripoli fell to the rebels, there was no water and electricity, and the fuel situation was very difficult. But we see daily improvements, and it's quite clear that the rebels have been preparing carefully for the restoration of the services in Tripoli, and also for improvements in the security. There still are significant problems with the treatment of African migrant workers, many of whom were being detained on the street. But we do see some that they are trying to address this situation and end this widespread attacks against African migrants.
If you could also talk about the latest you hear, though it's not in Tripoli, the news of leaders within Libya's rebel movement believing that Muammar Gaddafi has fled the encircled town of Bani Walid in a southbound military convoy to Niger and Chad. What do you understand is happening right now?
Well, there are intense negotiations taking place, led by Musa Ibrahim, the former spokesperson of the government who is in Bani Walid. We have no indication that those directly involve Muammar Gaddafi, but they certainly involve a lot of his inner circle. According to the information, we have some senior officials fled to Niger in the last few days, but we have no indication that Muammar Gaddafi himself was in that convoy. And we hope that if he does flee the country, he will be promptly arrested and handed over to the International Criminal Court.
Peter Bouckaert, you've mentioned that some air-to-surface missiles have gone missing in Tripoli in recent days. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yes, Human Rights Watch has been going around in the last week trying to locate the various weapon storage facilities in Tripoli because during the war, the Gaddafi forces knew that their main compounds will be bombed by NATO and destroyed, so they moved a lot of their weaponry into private companies and compounds, which makes it difficult to locate them. And we were very concerned that a lot of these weapons will fall in the wrong hands. Yesterday, I found a warehouse which had been packed with surface-to-air missiles, including some very modern surface-to-air missiles. We've seen these weapons are floating around everywhere, but we found some very recent acquisitions of Russia's most modern SA-24 surface-to-air missiles, and they have all been looted in the last few weeks, which creates some very serious concerns about the safety of commercial aircraft in the regions because those surface-to-air missiles, especially the SA-24, are capable of shooting down an airplane flying as high as 11,000 feet. But secondly, we're also very concerned that a lot of warehouses with explosive weapons such as mines and tank shells and artillery shells are completely insecure. I just came from a warehouse where I literally opened the gate to drive in and found a building packed to the ceiling with anti-tank and anti-vehicle mines, completely insecure and unguarded.
Peter, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee yesterday, Michigan Republican Mike Rogers, expressed concerns to the White House that al-Qaeda might actually capture some of these weapons. And he said, we need to be doing more to secure these weapon systems now, and there is nobody better who can get their hands on this stuff, account for it, and render it safe than the U.S. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I was quite surprised to see that there are no international forces, not forces, but organizations or individuals on the ground in Tripoli trying to secure these very dangerous weapons. We have been warning the U.S. and other Western countries that these weapons are floating around all over the country, and that every time a city falls, they end up being looted. So we had expected a more forceful response to try to secure these weapons, but unfortunately it's now very late in the day. Every facility we go to where there were surface-to-air missiles, they're gone, and what is left behind is World War II-era weaponry. And according to some of the rebels I've spoken to who've been to these warehouses after they first fell to the rebels, those surface-to-air missiles were still there when the government of Gaddafi fled. So they have been looted. They have not been removed by the Gaddafi forces.
Peter Bouckaert, would I like to ask you to stay on the line. We're going to go to break, and then when we come back, we want to pursue the second part of this interview and also bring in a British attorney, and it's the issue of British and U.S. intelligence working with the Gaddafi regime around extraordinary rendition and what documents Human Rights Watch has found in Tripoli. We're talking to Peter Bouckaert of Human Rights Watch. We'll be back with him and with British Attorney Gareth Peirce in a minute.